Hello, Nebraska, and welcome to this week's edition of the Retirement Compass, the show dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have two members from Stonebridge Wealth Systems based right here in Nebraska, Tim Kulhanek, who is the co-founder, and Jeremy Gove, who is a partner. And if you've ever wondered how you're going to build a solid retirement income plan for yourself, you do not want to miss today's show. It's called Income is the Outcome. Do you have a solid plan in place for your retirement income? Tim, Jeremy, it's always a joy to be with you. How are you this week?
Doing great, thanks.
Good,
yeah, very good. Thank you.
Well, I know, again, you are so busy all the time meeting with folks who are coming in after they've attended one of your workshops or watched this television show or listened to your radio show. And I know that one of the things you are so passionate about helping these folks do is building a solid retirement income plan, because it's all about income at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so when it comes to building a retirement income plan, here's what's interesting. We are all accustomed and used to getting a paycheck throughout our working years. And you're used to maybe getting paid every 2 weeks or at least once a month. But something interesting happens when you walk through the door of retirement. That paycheck stops unless you have a solid income plan in place, and it now becomes up to you to make sure that you are generating that for yourself. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And, you know, I think this is what creates that number one fear that most retirees have, which is the fear of running out of money, is not knowing how to generate a consistent, reliable, ongoing, steady stream of income for yourself in retirement. So what do you find, Jeremy, are some of the biggest challenges when folks are trying to go about doing this on their own?
Yeah, so if we want to just take a step back and go through history a little bit. So you have, historically, retiring is a relatively new concept, if you think of it this way. I mean, if you think, back in early 1900s, people didn't retire. Why? Well, they didn't live long enough to retire, right?
Sure,
I mean, that's just the reality of it. So you didn't have to worry about it. As people started to live longer, for a long time, that burden of saving for retirement was put on the companies, the employers that they worked for, and they did that through pensions. And so there were a lot of pensions that, there's still some around, but the majority of people aren't, they're very rare now. Yeah. And so as you kind of walk through history, pensions become more and more rare. And so that burden was transferred from the employer to the employee. And that's when they started the 401ks and all these different types of retirement plans and ERISA and all that. And so it's just important to understand that it's your responsibility, right? As an employee, it's my responsibility to save for my retirement. There are some things like Social Security. We've done a show on just Social Security, but Social Security is there to help, but it should not be a primary source of income in your retirement years. For lower income earners, I think that Social Security can get up to 70 or 80% of your income in your retirement years.
Right.
But if you're a higher income earner, it should be lower, in that 30% range roughly. And so, when you look at there's just a lot of different things that we need to do to provide that income in our retirement years.
There's less guaranteed income streams, right? And that were given, like for example, when you had a pension or whatnot in the past. But then also you have all these other challenges that impact all of us. Market volatility, inflation, all these different risks that no one is immune to. So, I think this is what contributes to that fear. And we have some stats to share. This is from the 2023 Schroders U.S. Retirement Survey. It surveyed 2,000 U.S. investors nationwide to learn more about the state of retirement readiness and planning and key concerns that folks have. 49% of those respondents said that they do not have a retirement income strategy. Their plan is to simply just take money from their accounts when they need it. 57% said that they are concerned about not having a regular paycheck in retirement. And get this, guys, 23% said that they were terrified. I mean, that's so sad, because we all know here at this table that with the proper planning in place, this stress, this worry, this concern can be alleviated.
Sure, it really can. And, when I look at these numbers, 49% said that they do not have a retirement strategy. I immediately think, and then probably about 20% just aren't being forthcoming about the fact that they don't have a retirement strategy for when. So think about it, a retirement strategy isn't just, what date am I going to retire? It includes which account am I going to take money out of? First, second, third. Do I take a standard distribution where I'm taking maybe taxable money, so it's like money in the bank, that sort of thing, then tax deferred, and then my Roth money if I have any, I wait till the end? Or am I going to maybe do a pro rata? Have they tested those different scenarios? I'd say the vast majority have not.
Right.
We typically see one of two outcomes when people don't have a plan in place. Either they overspend or they underspend. Both are problematic in my opinion, because on the overspending side, I just have to have, like, part of my job, Jeremy's job, our team of elite advisors, our job is to be honest with you and tell you the truth, okay? So if you're overspending, we're not gonna tell you, hey, I hope you had a fun time. We're gonna tell you, I hope you had a fun time. You can't afford to do this anymore, okay? I want everyone wants to be able to be as generous as possible and have a good time with family and friends.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to be honest with us too. So I just had a situation the other day where a client was talking about how they were having, maybe a little bit less money than they thought they would for paying taxes and making retirement contributions. And I talked to their CPA and found out that, well, they had loaned family, it was over $100,000 that I didn't know about. We have to be honest with the people that we're trusting with our financial future. And then we have to trust that those people are going to return the favor and be honest with us. So when somebody's overspending, I'm going to tell them, hey, listen, this is your money. You're the CEO. We work as personal CFOs, okay?
I like that.
You call the shots. Let's put it another way, like a football analogy. You're still the athletic director. We're the head coach, right? You're our boss, right? But we're going to hire the right people: offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams. And now you'd have to think of that like, okay, the right investment strategy, the right tax strategy, the right legacy
tools.
or estate, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have confidence in the person that you hired. Number two is if you're underspending. That's problematic because the government knows how much money is in these retirement accounts that we've been talking about, we talk about every week on this show. There's something called a Form 5498 that your custodian files with the government every single year. They know there's roughly $10 trillion in pre-tax retirement accounts and IRAs and another $7 trillion in 401ks. And so if you're underspending while rates are at historical lows, what you're doing is you're simply shifting the tax burden to your beneficiaries, and they're going to pay at some point in the future while rates could be stratospherically higher, okay? So we want to make sure that we're enjoying our retirement, doing it responsibly, and at the end of the day, when it comes to money, how do people, and studies show this, what's the best way for people to interact with their money? Not buying things, but buying experiences. And that's what we want to encourage people to do responsibly.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up. Of course, people I think are familiar with overspending. That can often contribute to the fear, right? They're like, well, I don't know how much I have. I hope it'll be there. But I think equally as tragic is the underspending, especially when folks have dreams and goals of what they want to do in retirement, but because they're so afraid they're going to run out of money, they're not willing to spend the money to do those things in the years when they are physically able to do that. And I think so much of what your job that I know you love doing for folks, it's helping folks say what you can do in retirement, not what you can't do. But you can only have that peace of mind that you can go ahead and spend that money when that solid plan is in place. And of course, having that written income plan is such a huge part of a written financial plan. There's a lot of rules of thumb out there. I've heard this, and I know all of us at this desk have, when it comes to generating income in retirement. One of the common rules of thumb is something known as the 4% rule. So, Jeremy, I'd love for you to touch on what that is and why you don't engage in the 4% rule with your clients.
Well, the reason I don't engage with it is because I don't like cookie cutter approaches. So that's just a non-starter for me from that perspective. But the 4% rule is just simply stating if you have $1 million in your account, you can withdraw 4% a year. Historically, you should stay slightly above inflation because inflation's supposed to be around 3%, which we've seen that it hasn't stayed there for a while.
Right.
And so I can draw out 4% a year, and I should never run out of money because the investments that I'm making should be averaging 7% or whatever. But the reason the 4% rule has problems is, as Tim was mentioning, if you have money in all in an IRA, a traditional IRA, that's taxable. So you're not really, if you're pulling out 4%, you're not living off 4% because you're paying tax on that. Or maybe you're pulling out 5% to get 4%. So that's why the rule just is flawed from the beginning. And so we just don't use that. But it is important. I want to go back to the topic of, underspending. Because a lot of my clients are in that early baby boomer age group, right? And so they lived through the Great Depression, or at least on the back end of it, right? And heard about it, and their family, their parents lived through it. And so their natural tendency is to not spend money.
Right.
And I was sitting down with a sweet lady in Hastings, and she was telling me, you know, Jeremy, I had no idea I would have this much money. She has income coming in from all over the place, really, way more than she needs. And she's trying to figure out what to do with her money. But she said, you know, if I would have known I was going to be in the position I am now, back when my husband was still alive and when our kids were younger, we probably wouldn't have slept in our car when we were going on vacations. We would have actually spent the money on a hotel. Or we wouldn't have stopped at the grocery store to buy, you know, the bread, the meat, the cheese, the mayo, so they can make sandwiches in their car. You know, and so the bigger thing that I guess we're trying to instill in all of our clients is, as Tim mentioned, it's buying experiences. Those are what you remember.
Yes.
You know, you buy something today, and tomorrow it's lost its luster. But you take a trip with your family, that's something you talk about for years.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's really making those dreams come true. I feel like you guys are in the business of helping folks, you know, make their dreams a reality. And obviously, you know, so much goes into building this retirement income plan. I know we're going to get into more of this conversation. To your point, Tim, earlier, it's not just I have this lump sum of money, but it's knowing what to take from which account, when, you know, how much, all of this kind of stuff. But the reason the cookie cutter approach doesn't work is no two plans are alike, no two people are alike, no two retirement dreams are alike. So talk about the personalization of that plan.
Sure. I think for our audience members out there, you just got to keep in mind, you know, we went through a period of time here recently where we hear a lot about science, and science is important. It helps us understand the world around us. I don't claim to represent science. I'm not a scientist. But I think I know a couple things, and according to science, there's been over 100 billion inhabitants on this blue-looking planet that we call Earth. No two fingerprints have ever been found to be the exact same. That's how unique we all are. Your retirement income plan should be kind of made in the same type of idea. It should be unique. It shouldn't be like your neighbors, okay? It shouldn't really be like anyone else's in the country, because then no one else is you. And so what, you know, so you might be thinking, what is a retirement income plan? A retirement income plan or written financial plan, all it is it's a comprehensive set of documents that's going to outline where your income is going to come from, how long it's going to last, what account you're going to take it from, and what you're going to be able to do. But I think the more important thing is what it means. When you get this this analysis done, you're going to leave our office knowing that your retirement plan has been tested hundreds of different ways for possibly thousands of different outcomes. Good markets, bad markets, high inflation, low interest rates, high interest rates. Tim, what if they cut Social Security? I don't care what it is. We're going to test every potential scenario that you can think of, and you're going to leave knowing that you have a thoroughly tested, high probability of success by following the strategy that we implement, so you can stop worrying, you can get the sleep at night that you need, and you can start enjoying the experiences that we've been talking about here today.
I'm so excited for more folks to connect with you, Tim, Jeremy. Thank you so much. So if you're out there and you would like to claim your very own personalized written financial plan, completely complimentary, simply pick up the phone and call 866-256-7778, or you're welcome to take out your smartphone, and if you open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. More on the Retirement Compass right after this.
My story started when I was in college. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew it was going to be in the financial industry. I took a lot of accounting and finance classes. I thought I'd probably work in like a bigger company and work my way through maybe the accounting department. But then when I was doing a internship the summer before my senior year, I walked into a business. I was trying to sell magazine ads. I don't know if I call it magazine ads, but basically ad space in the back of the UNK student handbook and planner, which was a difficult sell because, you know, nobody uses pen and paper planners anymore, at least not college students. But I made my best pitch to some financial advisors. I happened to be Scott Noctegal that I met with that day. When I went for the close and tried to see if he was ready to sign up for some ad space, he said, yeah, no, I'm not interested in that, but it takes a lot of courage to have somebody to be willing to walk into a business, especially a business that really doesn't cater to your target audience, to put yourself out there in a way that the odds of you being successful are probably pretty low. That's the type of person we'd be looking for at our firm. Have you decided what you want to do? And I said, No, I really haven't, but I normally want to work with finance because I like numbers, and math's always been my favorite subject, and working with kind of complex equations, almost like a puzzle. And so that's really where it all began.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass, brought to you by the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems, based right here in Nebraska. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Tim Kulhanek and Jeremy Gove. We are talking today about building a solid retirement income plan for yourself. And, obviously there's a lot of challenges. I think folks can find this very overwhelming. But to compound the problem, a lot of advisors out there, or folks that call themselves financial planners, aren't engaging in retirement income planning. So I'd love for you to touch on that, explain the difference between what you do and what the vast majority of financial planners out there are doing or maybe aren't doing. So how do you serve your clients differently?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's an important distinction, not only with income planning, but just financial planning in general.
For sure.
And so I just recently met with a gal in Omaha. Mm-hmm. She came to one of our workshops, and that's how we got engaged. But she told me that her advisor is telling her that she should not draw Social Security right now because her income is too high. Mm-hmm. And this was in our first meeting, so I didn't have any of her details yet.
This was the first meeting.
This was in our first meeting, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so I just, I'm taking notes, and I'm gathering information. She brought in 2 years of tax returns and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I was, it was just kind of engaging with her. And when I started to look through her information and her documents, mm-hmm. her taxable income was $9,000.
Wow.
And so I called her immediately because she's 69 and mm-hmm. she could use the income from her Social Security. Mm-hmm. And she's close to 70. So, I mean, it's by the time we actually get her Social Security started, she will be 70.
That'll be the highest amount she's eligible
for. Yeah, so
for
there's
anyway,
no point in waiting beyond that for sure.
Yeah.
And, but she wasn't sure that she was going to start it right now mm-hmm. because she thought she would lose most of it to taxes or because she was making too much money.
Right.
And so I called her and asked her, well, what does your advisor think you make? And she said around $70,000 a year. She doesn't even make $70,000 a year, let alone her taxable income.
Right, because once you do the tax and she has the deductions and all that, I'm assuming that's how her income got down to only $9,000, right?
Right, and she didn't even have $70,000 at the starting point.
Wow.
So clearly the advisor did not even engage in asking the right questions and digging through the materials. And so that's what I see all the time. And that's what's the difference. So there are financial advisors who are more investment minded. Mm-hmm. That's probably because that's how they get paid. Mm-hmm. So they're focused on, your asset allocation. Mm-hmm. What do we want to invest in? How much risk do we want to take? Those are the questions they're asking.
Growing that money, right?
Yeah, they're
accumulating.
Only focused on the investment piece. But I will tell you, I have seen where we can save people just in taxes huge amounts of money. Mm-hmm. If we do Roth conversions, we could add hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million, to their accounts. And I know Tim's seen this too. It's just crazy. So the idea behind the difference between an investment advisor and a financial planner is pretty substantial. Mm-hmm. And we're going to look at a lot of different things and it all works together.
For sure.
It goes hand in hand.
Well, and it's a different skill set. I think, being in this industry now for over a decade myself, to your point, there are folks who just focus on the accumulation years, on the investment portion, but there's so much more that goes into building a comprehensive, holistic financial plan for someone. And what you all specialize in doing is creating that retirement income stream, because income is king. That's what it's all about, is making sure you have enough money to last you throughout the rest of your life.
Sure. And I think that it really comes down to two fundamental questions when we're building these plans. Mm-hmm. One being, how much income do you need?
Right.
So think of that like mandatory spending. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I got to have a roof over my head, and I got to put some food in my belly.
Yep.
And I got to pay some utilities and be able to just do basic things. I got to drive to work, those sorts of things. It's mandatory spending. Mm-hmm. In retirement, hopefully not driving to work. A lot of people do, part-time work. But two is, what income do you want? Yeah. And so that's more like the someday bucket. Mm-hmm. If you think about, hey, we'd like to be able to go this. Maybe it's going skiing in the Swiss Alps or something. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter what it is. There's some people that are more focused on spending time in their local communities just with family, and then those that have, again, grander plans.
Right.
But those two things, I think, is what we got to look at. What's interesting is, we've been talking a lot about studies, and do people have a plan for when they're going to distribute money? I looked at one. It was from NerdWallet. And it says that as much as 74% of Americans have a budget, which sounds great, right? I think that overestimates, again, by probably 30+%. What's interesting is it really comes down to what do you define as a budget? Because that same study found that 85% of those with a budget overspend regularly.
Right.
So what's the value in that? Again, I think it comes to somebody who's going to be almost like an accountability partner. We're talking about the value of an advisor. And it is, do they specialize in the accumulation phase or the distribution phase? We talked about this before. More people who climb Mount Everest or attempt to that don't make it, it's because they don't make it down.
Right.
They make it up, but on the way down, it's very treacherous. So that's where our specialty comes in, is as kind of more that distribution phase, where we can do it in a responsible manner so your money lasts as long as you need it to, and you allow yourself to do the things you want to do.
For sure. Gosh, so much goes into this. I know we have more to get to, but Tim, Jeremy, thank you. So if you're watching out there and you want help and you know that you would like to work with a retirement income specialist, someone who's going to be able to guide you, come alongside you, make sure that you know how you can generate an income for yourself that's going to last you for the rest of your life, we encourage you to pick up the phone and call. Again, this is completely complimentary for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems can help and serve you. That number to call to get your complimentary written financial plan is 866-256-7778, or if you scan that QR code, that will get you connected as well. More on the Retirement Compass right after this.
I own a motel I was able to buy out of college. When I actually ended up buying the motel, I was leaving. I had just passed the life and health license, and I was going to sell Medicare supplements and long-term care. I told the owner of the motel that, hey, I'm going to be leaving. I was giving him a 6 months heads up that, hey, I'll train whoever you want to bring in. He said, I'd actually rather sell you the motel than bring in a new manager, because he never showed up. So he didn't have to do anything. It was kind of like an ATM for him. And so, you know, when you own your own business, there's a lot of people that got to be paid. There's marketing that has to be done. There's a lot of different dynamics that go into running a motel. It actually taught me to think outside the box a little bit. And so I started looking around, what are other things I can do? Because I really liked helping people. I liked solving problems for them. And there's a big difference between selling something and actually finding solutions to problems. When you're thinking about personal finance and managing somebody's retirement for them, they've worked for 40 years saving all this money, and now they're retiring. They're turning this over to you to take and run with it. So it's a big deal. I think we can always do stuff better. There's always room for improvement. And so I want to read as much as I can. I want to study as much as I can so that I can do a better job for my clients, which they're counting on me to get the job done for them.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with Tim Kulhanek and Jeremy Gove. Today we are talking all about income, and do you have a solid income plan in place for your retirement? You know, one of the challenges is not only navigating all the complexities of where to withdraw money, in what order, how much, from which account, right? All this goes into developing a solid retirement income plan, but we also have to deal with challenges that impact all of us. One of them at the top of everyone's minds right now is inflation. And so my question is, how do you adjust and account for inflation in the retirement income plans that you build for folks?
Yeah, it's a great question. And inflation, like you said, Kristen, is something that all of us, it impacts every financial plan. And, you know, when we used to talk about inflation, people would just, their eyes would kind of glaze over, because it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, because it, you know, it was around 3% historically. But over the last couple years, now we know what inflation means. It means eggs cost a lot more, milk costs a lot more. So our clients understand it.
Yes.
And now they understand why we need to account for that. Because if you have high inflation for multiple years, now we're, instead of withdrawing, let's say $4,000 a month, we need to withdraw $5,000 just to live. And so that's where you have to plan for that. And most people, we talked about the 4% rule earlier. Most people, if you were to use the 4% rule, you're just withdrawing 4%. Well, you can't account for inflation in that situation. Otherwise, you'll blow up the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to just understand that it exists, but also how to account for it and how to budget for it, how to plan for it. Some things have higher inflation than others, like healthcare. The healthcare inflation has been way above the national average. And so when we're planning for healthcare, we actually inflate those numbers a little bit higher than our traditional inflation. So it's not only just accounting for inflation, but where does it apply? And how does it fit into my plan specifically? If I'm paying for college, there's another extremely inflated, tuition has just grown. So it's just an example of things that we need to account for, but not only account for it, but how to account for it.
And adjust accordingly.
And
for
adjust
sure.
accordingly, yeah.
Well, then how do you help protect a client's income, the folks that you work with? Once you've built this income plan, how do you help protect that income against different risks? Because even if you just put all your money in the bank, well, then you have inflationary risk, right? There's no one safe place, if you will, to put investments in money. So how do you help navigate those risks?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kristen. I think a lot of it has to do with knowing what bucket, what dollars go in. One thing I'd add on inflation, this kind of, I think, hits it home for a lot of folks that are our viewers at home, is somebody once told me that inflation is paying $15 for a $10 haircut that used to cost you $5 back when you had hair, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, so
Good way to put it.
that's inflation. Now I just gotta do the sides, right? So to all my fatherly challenged friends, I'm just giving you a hard time. Anyways, so how do you protect it? I mean, you make good decisions when it comes to Social Security. That's the bedrock. You have to have a strong foundation. You wouldn't, when you're drawing up a plan, if you're, think of building a house. When you're drawing up plans for a house, you're not going to just randomly start ordering lumber and thinking, I might need this many 2x4s, and I'm probably gonna need some trusses and sheeting and all these different things, shingles. You're going to work with an architect. You're gonna draw up a blueprint and make sure that the first thing that you do is ensure that your plan has a solid foundation. So for a lot of us, most of it, that's going to be Social Security, making good decisions, maximizing Social Security. You can check out our episode that we did on Social Security. We talk about how, whether you're single, married, widowed, divorced, it doesn't really matter. There's a Social Security strategy for you we can help implement, and then we build on that. I think the key thing I leave our viewers with is don't take unnecessary risks. Warren Buffett once said that it's crazy to risk what you have for something that you just don't need. We can sit down with you, create the retirement compass, make sure that what strategy that we're implementing, it takes on a reasonable amount of risk, helps you grow your money, but also helps protect your money so it's gonna last as long as you want it to and need it to. And we'd be happy to visit with you in our office soon.
Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. Again, that number to call is there on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you, Nebraska. We look forward to being back with you next week.